All right. Welcome to Pej's Recovery Corner. This is Pej. I'm here today with Mariana. Welcome to the corner, Mariana. Nice to have you on. This is my recovery podcast where we talk about all things recovery or lack thereof. And I'm so happy that you're on here because I've seen you and I've gotten to know you a little bit, but I see you more like on social media, and I see that you're like an adventurer. And there was a time where we happened to be somewhere where I heard you talk about some stuff, and I thought, wow, she's so well spoken and so well put together. And so I was intrigued by who you are as a person in recovery, as a lady in recovery. So first and foremost, I want to know about your past, where you're from, where you were born, where you're from, where you were raised, and then we'll get into the other stuff. So go ahead. The floor is yours.
Okay, so I was born in Ukraine. When I was 11, my parents brought me out here. Growing up, my parents are non-alcoholics. My grandma was an alcoholic. She died of this disease, and she never had any program or anything.
Mhm.
And so yeah, I was raised by an adult child of an alcoholic, pretty much, which is my mom. And growing up, my mom was the other woman that my dad left his previous wife for.
Mhm.
And growing up, I just faced a lot of I heard a lot of the times them fighting all the time. And my mom always being insecure about being like, after she was like the other woman, she was convinced my dad was cheating. And so I was kind of raised in like that neurosis. And yeah, and then when I was 11, my parents came out here we came out here from Ukraine. And
Mhm.
about a year and a half after that, my father passed away, and my mom barely knew English, so it was like a struggle. And
Your
I've
father
been
passed away.
when I was 12, and yeah, and then I've been working. I started working when I was 14,
Did you
and
have any siblings at all?
so yeah, I actually do have a sister and a brother. They're from my dad's side, so
Mhm.
they're not at all close to my mom, who was the other woman. My
Mhm.
sister is 11 years older. My brother is 20 years older. But I had a falling out with my sister 2 years ago, and I haven't spoken to her since. So it's just me and my mom.
Okay, so when you said you started working at 14, like doing what?
I was actually, so we were low income. So there was this TANF program. I guess it was like for a program for children from low income households. And so you could work during summer if you got a permit, whatever. So it was actually legal work since I was 14. I was working at like an adult um, adult learning center, and I was just like a file keeper, like I was basically like an assistant or a secretary or whatever. So I would just do like the clerical stuff. And then when I was 15, I started working for the city of LA, with that program, and then they hired me on board with them, and I was actually like a camp counselor and an after school teacher, like in the beginning of my drug use,
Mhm.
from the age of 16 to 19.
So you started using drugs when you were 16?
So I started drinking with Russians. Like I started getting drunk when I was 14.
Uh-huh.
And then when I was 16, I had a boyfriend, of course, and he was a drug dealer. And so that's when my heavy drug use began.
And
Yeah.
this you were growing up in LA, right? During this time, this is where you
Mhm.
were?
Yeah.
Like the Valley, San Fernando
Yes.
Valley? Yeah. So you had a boyfriend that was a drug dealer and you were drinking with Russians.
Yes. And, like I've never, to this day, I can't recall a time when I like went and like had a nice little pretty drink. It was always like the actual bottle of vodka. It was cost efficient, you just drink it straight. Um, the first time that I got drunk, like I was like so tough, and it was like always around like a bunch of guys, and I was one of the only girls, or like one of the two girls. And it was just like I didn't want to take chasers. I was too tough for that, and I was just like drink, 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 and then I would get sick.
Were you a tomboy growing up at all, or just like, or the girl that
No, I
hung out
was
with the
just
guys?
actually no, I've never been a tomboy, but I just like always I always was like one of the guys,
Just like
or
one of
like
the
I
guys.
felt like one of the guys,
Yeah.
like I felt like I was, I was treated like that. I wanted that. It was a safe space to be one of the guys, like I can talk like one of the guys for
Yeah.
sure. So yeah.
Nice. You speak your mother language too, obviously, right?
Mhm.
I love
Yeah.
it. What language is it? Serbian?
Russian.
Oh, Russian.
Russian. Yeah.
Nice. Nice. I love that. Okay, so you got into alcohol, drugs. I mean, when you say you got into drugs, like dating a dealer, what the hell did he have?
Okay, so it started off with weed, which, the first few times I didn't like. It was made me paranoid, but I
Mhm.
kept, I'm not a quitter. So I kept going until it was like I enjoyed it or whatever. And then, we did the whole rave and ecstasy scene when EDC was back in LA,
Yes.
and, Together as One, Monster Massive, and, it was ecstasy, a lot of ecstasy, and,
Those were
uh,
good times.
yeah. Ecstasy, Molly, Xanax, Coke. But then when I was probably about 18, him
Mhm.
and I both, or 17, him and I both got into smoking Oxycontin.
Oh.
And
And
yeah,
why is that? Like, did he just happen to have some, or you
yeah, I
guys?
mean, that was the business, like the 80 milligram
Yes.
time release coated,
Hmm.
um, chasing the dragon or whatever, like on the foil. That was like the thing to do. I mean, those pills went crazy. Like you can get them with insurance for 18, then you sold them off for 80 in Washington. So it
Hmm.
was like that whole thing. And then it's funny because we would get loaded and I would be like, I always thought like I was a good person, I was like, oh, okay, I need one and, I'll pay you for it. And I basically didn't have the money. So it would accumulate and I owed him like 40 at the end, of our relationship. And that's like a lot of money. So like a year later, it was transitioned to smoking heroin.
Okay, so now you have an opiate addiction at this point, right? Like you have to have it, or else you're going to go through withdrawals. Were you
Yep.
getting dope sick if you didn't have it? Were you
Yeah,
already
of course.
smoking?
Yeah.
And what, you were 18 years old during this time?
Yep.
Then what
Yep.
happened?
About a year later, I was smoking heroin. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that went on in that time. I got arrested for the first time. I got my first two, almost three felonies. And yeah, I mean, there was like a lot of stuff incorporated. Like there was coke, and yeah, it was just like I went to rehab, and at some point, and I met this guy, and yeah, it was like I started shooting it all. Like it went on to me shooting up, and then I went to jail. It was like a lot of jail stuff, and then I actually got clean and sober for 20 months, and I was doing really well, but it was like surface doing well. Like I would
Right.
go to
How old were
meetings.
you then? Like 20?
22, yeah,
22?
yeah. There was a lot of like in and out between in that phase. Um, but it got worse after I got loaded after 20 months. And the reason why I got loaded is because I have received the gifts of step none. Like I was all about like the attention, go to meetings. I had a bunch of commitments. I wanted like a pat on the back. I wanted someone to tell me I'm doing well.
Hmm.
And like I wanted that validation from people. And then like towards the end of those 20 months, I just became resentful. I had this ego about me that I just like wanted, um, like I felt like people should treat me a certain way. And when
Hmm.
they didn't, like I got resentful and I justified my using, and then throw in some guilt and shame into the mix. And it's like recipe for disaster. That's exactly what happened. And, it was over a relationship. I relapsed or whatever. And it was just all bad. It was down the hill. And so towards the end of that stint, after it was right before the last time that I got sober, I was shooting heroin with meth while smoking crack.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, as bad as it could get, it got. I was homeless. I slept in the car, and I worked at some really interesting places. And I actually got fired from one of those interesting places. So yeah, and um, I got arrested one more time. I think it was my fourth time getting arrested, and I in jail, like I picked up a recovery book that's used in the program, in one of the programs, these anonymous programs, and that's how I got sober. My sobriety day is November 21st, 2013.
Okay, so and that was how old were you then?
I was 24. I got sober at 24.
And basically because you were locked up, you got wind of this book that you already kind of knew about, and that's what got you interested in seeking sobriety.
So yeah, like a year prior, one of my really good friends, Natalie, I knew how she got loaded because we got loaded together. The first time I shut up was with her, and then um, a year before I got sober, she was in the fellowship in the program, and she like I saw that she was able to do it, and how her life had changed, and she was very kind and hospitable to me. I just wasn't ready,
Mm-hmm.
and like because I saw it work for her, I knew it could work for me. And so because of that, because I had that like seed planted, she's basically my Eskimo, and because I had that seed planted is the reason why I decided like, hey, I can give it a shot. My life can change too.
I love that. I love it very much. Okay, so if you don't mind me asking, when you were getting arrested, what were you getting in trouble for? Was it uh,
So, so the first time it was burglary and grand theft, and then
gangster?
yeah, and then after that it was possessions. You know, it's like once they have you in the system, they got you. It was like probation violation. There was the last time that I got caught, like they were just like, I mean, I'm just gonna say like I don't think they actually had a case against me because like I was just in the parking lot, homeless with my mom, who's a
Mhm.
paranoid schizophrenic. You know, we were sleeping in the car, and you know, like I wasn't doing anything, so they basically just kind of like harassed me, and I had a warrant out for my arrest, and so they took me in, and I didn't really have anything on me. I was like down and out. You know, I had cottons, I had like very dried up cottons and syringes, and that was it. And
Wow.
yeah,
Wait, so you were homeless with your mom?
hmm yeah,
And was this on the streets of the valley, or where was this?
yeah. Actually, last time I got busted was on Sherman Way in Sepulveda. But yeah, we were in the streets of Valley. We used to park at like Ralph's parking lot and Woodland Hills at Sherman Way. That's like it's like deep in the valley, close to Pomona,
Yeah.
Van Nuys, whatever.
Yes.
Um, yeah. So
It's
I mean,
rough over there.
yeah. I don't know if you're familiar with Sepulveda, but like
Very.
Sepulveda south of Sherman Way, it's
Mhm.
like crack city.
It's bad. It's gotten
Yeah,
so bad. Like
yeah.
I used to be in that area when I was very young. It wasn't
Mhm.
like that. It
Oh,
was
really?
not like that. Not at
Wow.
all. When I drive through there now, I'm like, whoa! It's like a
Yeah,
third world country. It looks really bad.
yeah. It is really bad. Yeah, it's
Okay,
strange.
so you say let's get into the sobriety, but I'm interested in knowing like what happened with your mom. Is she okay?
So yeah, she's an undiagnosed, unmedicated paranoid schizophrenic, and
Hmm.
yeah, she lives with me now.
Hmm.
She was homeless for probably 7 years, kind of by choice. She felt safe in her car.
Hmm.
I tried to get her into a place, she refused it, but my roommate moved out in November, and so I convinced her to move in with me. So it's
Hmm.
been very interesting, but yeah, we live together now.
I love
Uh,
that.
yeah, but it's very difficult, which is why I like to take a lot of trips and kind of go and unwind after like a week of work and dealing with my mom and
Hmm.
not
And
being able to help.
how long were you actually you yourself homeless on the streets? How long did you live that
For a
lifestyle?
year.
I've been homeless myself. It sucks.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't homeless like sleeping on the street. We had a car, you know,
Yeah, yeah.
uh, but yeah, it was a
And
year.
in homeless life, like where would you shower?
So I worked at a strip club, and they actually had a shower there. I
No,
also
they
had like a bunch of, well, I had,
places to go, people's houses.
yeah, exactly. The I want to say lower companions, but I was probably the lower companion. They were
Yes.
the higher companions, but um, you know, they were like on similar frequencies as I was at that time.
Very well said. Very
Yeah.
well said. I understand, and understand it all too. Actually, that those same things come out of my mouth whenever I'm talking about my
Mhm.
past. So, but I love. Here's what I really love. I love when I see people in recovery. This is what captivated me about you and what you were talking about. Well, the first time I ever heard you talk was the way you spoke about your experiences in being homeless. I was like, oh, that's me. I mean, I've been through that too. And then getting out of that fucking rut and getting into recovery and completely transforming. I mean, and that's what our topic today was in the first place, was about being uncovering true self via sobriety. So like I think about like the woman that I see right now in front of me. You're so well put together, right? And you're an adventurer. I love following your stories because you do stuff that I fucking didn't even know existed. Like that whole thing of being in like a lake that you're like flying up in the
Oh,
air. Like I'm like, what the hell is
flyboarding.
that? Like I
Yeah.
want to do that, right? But like our true self is, until we get sober, we don't really actually know what our true self is. Everything is a facade. So you're not jail material, you're not homeless material, nor am I. I don't think that our families brought us from other countries to the land of opportunity to become these full-blown addicts and alcoholics that are aimlessly running the streets, or just living out of our cars or whatever we want to call
Mhm.
it. But so when you got sober at that age, at 24, and that person was an example for you, your Eskimo, which some people, if you don't know what an Eskimo is, it's usually a person who's an example, who's been sober for a minute before us, and they show us why they've changed their lives. My Eskimo is my friend Laura. I love her forever. She was 4 years sober, and when she saw me somewhere as a homeless man, she said, "I can't talk to you. You're not sober. Until you get sober, then I can talk to you." And then that hurt my feelings, but then she was the example. Then I got sober, and then she relapsed, but then I got her back in the program. At least she says
Oh,
that I was her Eskimo, so it kind of worked together. And I love
oh.
and adore her, and now she has double digit sobriety. So you got sober. Like, why did you stay sober? Because a lot of people don't get sober, or a lot of people that get sober young don't stay sober. You're 7+ years, almost 8 years sober now, right?
Hmm.
Why
Yeah.
why does Mariana stay sober?
um, the stuff that I've done in the past 7.5, whatever, 7+ years, in recovery has been way more than I've done the previous 24 years in my life.
Mhm,
Like it was never, I've discovered, like I've truly kind of like the topic uncovering true self through recovery.
mhm,
Like I didn't know who I was, right? Like I was just, they say, oh, restless, irritable, discontent. For me, it wasn't like restless. It was a lot of being restless, but at the same time, it was more like I was just shy. I was very like reserved, and then I would open up to people like once they whatever would warm up to me, but like I didn't have an identity, and I think a lot of that also has to do with, besides being an alcoholic, is just who you are, like what we go through in our 20s. We're like, we don't know who we are. We kind of like try different groups, and we're trying to figure out what is really us. And then through recovery, I was given the option to experience various different things, and I found out like, oh, I really like traveling, like I really like hiking, I really like and this is the number one thing in terms of the topic is, like I no longer live in fear. And what the program has of recovery has taught me is not living in fear. And what that means for me is
mhm,
I like go head on with fear. So like if
mhm.
I am afraid to cliff jump, I will stand in the cliff and I will shake until I cliff jump. And it's like you never know. It's like I don't want to have that thought like I could have done this. And, a lot of it also has to do with step work. Like something that came up with in step work is I remember specifically this one time. This was like when I was like 5. My neighbors came to my house and they offered us these like small dried out shrimps, right? Like in
Mhm,
Ukraine, that was like a thing. And I
mhm,
looked at them and they were scary and I said no. But then soon as they left, I kept obsessing about it. I mean, this is like 20 27 years later, this
yeah,
little incident that I remember because like I never tried it. And I was like, I still don't know what that tastes like. I've still never seen anything like this here in America,
mhm,
and it's like it's crazy because that kind of thing, it's like I no longer want to live like that, where I'm questioning, like, what if I tried it? You never know until you try. And so
That's right.
because I'm able to conquer that fear head on, I'm like able to experience all these beautiful things. And kind of like with the podcast, like you asked me, and like I kind of scary, kind of nerve-wracking, but it's like I won't know until I do it. So I literally say yes, like, to everything,
Dive
like,
in head first.
exactly, yeah.
I love that. That's awesome. So these trips that you go on, like, how do you find the places that you, because you're a traveling woman,
Yeah.
you go everywhere.
So actually, it's because of the program. Well, I started doing these like young people's. I've started going to these young people's events in my fellowship,
Hmm.
and like we would go to support other areas.
Hmm.
I was on this committee, right? This service committee in
Yeah.
our area, and which is, by the way, so amazing because it showed me how to have fun. Because I was 24 when I got sober, and like I heard a lot of people say like, oh, if you I was afraid that I wasn't gonna have fun because I was young and I got sober, my life was over. That was never my thought, because literally there was no fun had when I was like out there, like everything. When I went to meetings and I saw these people make announcements, they were attractive, like they looked like they were having fun. And
Right.
that was like attractive to me. And I wanted to be a part of something, like that's one thing that I did. I wanted to be part of the community, like I
Hmm.
was afraid of being alone. Like that was the thing that pulled me. And so because of that, I made friends literally like all across United States. And
Hmm.
actually have some friends in like Ireland and Australia. It's like, it's really cool concept. And so a lot of the times when I travel, I'm like, especially in this past year where there's not a lot of events going on,
Hmm.
because it started out with me going to conferences, like out of state conferences, and
Right.
making friends, and like maybe fit in one little adventure in that.
Hmm.
Um, but after COVID started, it was more like, I want to go visit my friend and I want to go like explore the area. So it was like killing two birds with one stone.
Right.
And like honestly, that's how it started out. And because of that, it's like it uncovered a whole um sleuth or whatever, many other things.
Right. I think I remember that right before pandemic hit. Well, I mean, okay, so I've gone to lots of young people's events just because. I mean, I wouldn't really. Somebody told me if you got sober in your 30s, you're still eligible to be part of young people's events. But
You're
I love
eligible at any age, by the way.
at any age. Okay, good, 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 good. I got sober mid 30s, but I remember I saw you. I think the first time I ever really saw who you were was at. It was in LA at a young person's event, and Russell Brand was speaking with Amy Dresner, and I mean, when I saw you were having a lot of fun, and I was like, "This is it." Like, I enjoy seeing because I didn't get sober in my 20s, so I think to myself, like in my 20s, I was sobriety was not even a concept. It wasn't not even a thought in the wind. Like there's no way I thought my life is fall, and it really like it wasn't until my later 20s until I was kind of running my life into the ground. So I love when I see people in their mid 20s have the realization, have the somewhat of an awakening to the fact that my life isn't working for me and I've got to change this. And so I think that, and I don't think I see it with you, like you're a great example for the other young people, because I think to myself, like if I was in my 20s amongst other young people, what would I want to do to make sure that we all stay, rather than, because what I see is some people, they come and they get sober when they're young and they may stay sober a year or two or three or four, but then all of a sudden I think that their heads start to play with them and they think to themselves, um, maybe I wasn't an addict, maybe I wasn't an alcoholic, like maybe I could still drink like a gentleman or like a gentlewoman, like maybe I could just go and test the waters one more time. And it never fails, in most more cases than none, when they go back and test the waters, they come back and they're fucking beat, like just beat, and you're like, okay, well, you had to learn it the hard way. The sad thing is, and the scary thing is, these days, people can't. There's certain drugs that they might go and experiment with, but unfortunately, it can also be their demise. It could kill them, like straight up. I'm sure you've had plenty of friends that have overdosed and died from heroin, fentanyl, all the stuff that's out there these days. So, What's your experience with that? Like when you have a friend that's super struggling, how what do you do? Like as a person, as a lady in recovery?
Okay, that's a difficult one for me because early on in sobriety, I learned the hard way that I need to allow people to have their own process. Literally, what my job is as someone in recovery is like, you've seen my social media, right? Like all the stuff that I do or whatever. I do like partake in some uh, recovery stuff, which is like very subtle and anonymous, but it does kind of like point that, oh, hey, I'm in recovery or I'm sober.
Hmm.
And like I basically try to like live as an example, right? So like people see this like, oh, that's so cool. So I had one girlfriend who actually she would watch me, right? She would watch me on social media, and she was like, that's so cool, I want to hang out. And so one time, like about 3.5 or 4 years ago, she reached out to me, and she wanted to get sober. So I took her to she's like, oh, I want to go to a meeting. So I took her to a meeting, and we had a conversation. And she told me basically like she's like still is gonna smoke weed. Like based on the conversation, I don't remember exactly the words that transpired, but it was clear to me that she like wasn't ready. And in that case, like I will never be like, you must do this, you need
Right.
to do this, right? So I took it to me and I said, okay, and it's like I kind of like left an open door. I didn't like reach out to her, but I always like if she would reach out to me, I would answer.
Hmm.
And she had her path, she had her journey, and then she actually got clean sober, and she just celebrated 3 years in July.
Nice.
Yeah, so it's like stuff like this, like I no longer different people. I feel like in the program or in recovery, people have different skills, right? For
Right.
some people, the skill is to be a sponsor, be a good speaker, right? For some, it's being very like humble in terms of like speaking or whatever, but they're very of service, right? They're part of general service. There's
Hmm.
very few people that I actually know that can do all three things well, which is like the fellowship or whatever, the unities, service and recovery, which is sad because it's like, you know,
They're supposed
those
to
are
work together. Yeah.
right. But like I personally, there's only few people that I've seen work all three of those like almost to perfection as I see it.
Hmm.
But most of the times, I feel like people have skills in two of the areas more strongly than they do in the third one or whatever. And so my thing is not like, um, it's, yeah, it's like for me, it's definitely the unity, and the service was for a while up until COVID. Like I was very active in hospitals, institutions, going to panels. I was very active in the committees, but because of that, I neglected the recovery. I neglected my step work a lot of the times.
And now,
And now I am actually neglecting the service side, which was so profound in my recovery. Like I literally thought that that's what was keeping me sober. And I believe to this day it was, but because of the past, year and a half or whatever, however long it's been since COVID
right.
started, because of that, it forced me to go inward a lot more. Right.
Hmm.
And so I just recently, I got a new sponsor probably 2 months ago, and so like we're back onto the step work. We're going to be on step 8, as I talked about last time when you heard me speak.
Hmm.
And yeah, like it just honestly these past 2 years forced me to go inward in a lot of senses of the word. Like I just recently got out of a relationship, and it's crazy, like there's all these this is the crazy part when everything around me crumbles, which it kind of feels like it is. And
Hmm.
it happened in 2019. It's happening again now. So it's about every 2 years, looks like.
Hmm.
And like literally everything, people just like stepping out of my life, or I'm pushing people out of my life for whatever reason. And, this is falling apart. This is falling apart. This is falling apart. And I'm in so much pain. And the thing for me is not, oh, I want to use, like, but the thing for me, it's like there's like this crazy overwhelming sense of peace, because now I know that I can let go. Like things can't possibly get worse. Like I'm like, that's it. I no longer want my will. I just want the universe to do whatever it's supposed to and put me exactly where I need to go.
I love it. It's so good. I was wondering, do you think have you had problems with relationships in recovery? I have.
Yeah.
do you
So
think do you think like your upbringing, like watching I know you lost your dad at a very young age, but like before that, it seemed like there was some drama. And I think as kids, like when we see stuff between our parents, like we take on emotions, we take on feelings, and then later on I think it resurfaces later on in our own relationships, depending on where we are in life. And so like I know when I would get into relationships in recovery, a lot of the stuff that I didn't like about what I saw with my parents, especially with my dad's reaction to things, were coming out of me, and without really even like without me really being aware of it. You know what I mean? Like, is this something that when you say you've gone inward, something that you've been working on or you've noticed?
I mean, yeah. So part of the major thing that happened probably in the past year is, like I was always like recovery. This is the only way. I mean, my, the book for my recovery program says this is not no autonomy. I forget the words, just drawing a blank, but basically it's saying like this is not the only way to get sober, right?
Mhm.
But I like for many years I went on looking up to people who have multiple years of recovery. My sponsor at some point, I just looked up to them and I'm like, this will literally solve all my problems. And it's crazy because the book says this will solve all your
All your
problems. And this
problems.
book has been a basis for a bunch of other programs of recovery,
Mhm.
right?
Right.
And yes, I can see that, but I can see and I can understand it. But in the past year, I've outsourced to other pieces of literature, and they're not my recovery fellowships or whatever approved literature, but they're like the Four Agreements, which is a very well known book, right?
Mm.
Don Miguel Ruiz. He has another one, The Mastery of Love. And
Mastery
so
of Love is a beautiful book.
right
Beautiful book.
and
Yeah.
and there's been like some other pieces of literature, and so like what my consensus is like, yeah, I'm definitely I could probably qualify for that fellowship, adult children of alcoholics, because I
Mhm.
was raised by someone who was raised by an alcoholic and she
Mhm.
carried on what was taught to her.
Mhm.
But so yeah, I feel like that does affect my relationships, but at the same time, something that I've been trying to embrace and live by this past year is like we tell ourselves, like it's the stigma. It's what we say. Like I got so used to saying, "Oh, I'm sick," or "Oh, I'm crazy," and
Mhm.
no, like we can't say stuff
That's
like
right.
that. We need to put a stop to saying, "Oh, I'm sick," "Oh,
Right.
I'm this," because we literally manifest those things onto us.
Mm.
And that's been so major in the past year because it made me like, I'm always saying, "Oh, I'm sorry, I'm sorry." And someone pointed it out to me. When you say you're sorry, you're saying, I am the person sorry. Like,
Mhm.
so my niece actually said that, and she's like, you have to say, "I apologize." And I'm like, oh yeah, that's true. And I never really paid attention to that.
Mhm.
And like I'll this is like a really vulnerable thing. Um, the program has like literally saved my life, saved thousands of other people's of lives. But in the past year, because I had to take a step back, a lot of us are forced to take a step back. It made me more aware, right? There's a lot of stigma that goes on. There's a lot of like those negative stigmas that go on in the fellowship that I never really took a note of, and that's not gonna like make me, oh, like I want nothing to do with the program, right? Like I'm going back into more meetings as much as I can. I got the sponsor, but at the same time, we always have this option. We get to pick and choose what we want to carry with us, right? And before I was very easily influenced,
Mhm.
and I would take the negative parts of it as well, and I would like make that a part of me. And so now I'm more aware and I'm more clear on those things so that I can actually take the positive reinforcements or whatever and take the positive things from the program and carry that with me and leave the rest behind.
I love
Is
it.
that your cat? Is that your cat?
Yeah, I think she's stuck in a room.
Oh,
everything you're saying is music to my ears. Truly, I really, really love. I get what you're saying. Like, we condition ourselves to thinking and being a certain way because we might hear it a certain way or we might think it and then we believe it. But that we can manifest negativity or we can turn it around and manifest positivity. I think when I was newly sober, I learned about this movie called The Secret and I watched it in rehab and I was like, I remember distinctly they said you build your own energy, however that may be. If you're going to be a negative Nancy, you're going to have a negative life. Like that's all there is to it. If you're a positive Peter, like you can just positivity will ooze through you. And so that's what I did. I truly did. Like I wanted to be able to work those steps in that particular program because I was tired of living the way I was living. And if I'm not mistaken, obviously there's is a portion of it that's a fearless moral inventory and overcoming fear. And the only way I was going to be able to do that is by plugging into something greater than myself. I love what you talked about today as far as not living in fear. Too many people live in fear. Even during pandemic, like when this first started for us, especially people in recovery, like a lot of people were freaked out, like, how are we going to do this? Like, we can't go to meetings and things like that. But truth be told, I think it brought us closer together. I think we learned more about each other. We got to go to different parts of the world that we would have never been able to have gone to and interacted with other people in recovery. So is the glass half full or is it half empty? You know what I mean?
Right.
So I just dig it. I dig it so much. Um, what does your future look like? Are you chasing your dreams? Are you happy with the job that you're working right now?
Yeah, so that's a tough one. So I have an amazing boss who's kind of losing it, I think, right now. Kind of like the whole like living in fear concept. Um, and he's really overcome by fear, and it's like, and I see how it affects, and it just like it's crumbling. It feels to me, my perception of it is like his mind is crumbling because of that. Um, he's a great boss and he's been really good to me. So I don't know, I probably could never leave him because he's so good to me. And he allows me the time to go and travel. I work Monday through Thursday, 9 to 5. And on Fridays, I work 9 to 12. I have great schedule for what I want to do and take off.
Mhm.
He'll give me Friday off occasionally, Thursday off if I want to go somewhere. Um, but what I really want to, and that's kind of what I've been like really trying to manifest is like I want to be able to have my own business. I want to work remotely. Either one of those options, like I just want to like I want to be somewhere where I can interact with people, where I can travel, when I could talk, when I could help. Like I want to be in that position. So I don't really like one of the major things was like just recently getting out of a really toxic relationship. And I'm not saying that the person was toxic. It was just like the way that I reacted to the situations. And, I tried to break it off many times and I couldn't, it's like there was just so much craziness happening, but like it was important for that to happen because um, it allowed me to like be put in that restless, irritable, and discontent state to
Mhm.
where like now that I took a step back and like I can look back at that and like the hindsight is 2020, whatever they say.
Right.
I can like truly see the things that I need to work on. Like, and this is the crazy part. So like one of the major things that came up in my step work is fear of being alone, right?
Mm.
For a lot of us, I
For
have
a
some
lot of us.
clients, that's a
Yep.
major one. I have
Mm.
no fear of being alone. I
Right.
can literally go to a rave, which
Uh-huh.
I've done, and I can be alone and I can have
And
a blast.
just be just fine, huh?
Exactly. I'll go to another state on a road trip by myself, which I've done, and I
Right.
can be fine and I can have a blast, you
Right.
know? And I'm pushing. The only thing that I haven't done alone is I haven't like tent camped alone, but I've car camped alone and I have a blast. I love it. Like I feel at peace. I don't feel alone, like I feel like my creator has me. And like, when I was going through this breakup, it was rough. And I was just like literally praying all day long. God help me, God help me, God help me, God help me, over and over again. And another thing is I started listening to like a lot of YouTube meditations, like the kind like in the
What do you
morning.
listen to? Which ones?
Oh, there's so many. It's like I mean, literally, just like I would Google or whatever, look up on YouTube, um, positive affirmations or like morning affirmations. My friend Natalie actually put me onto it.
Yes.
Probably like 8 months ago when I was starting going through hardships in the relationship. And
Uh-huh.
it like literally every morning, and then at night I do like, you know, lately I've been doing the one that's disattaching negative emotional cords or whatever. And it's crazy. I started doing this meditation, and a couple of friends, like I separated myself from a couple of friends in my life. Not to
Hmm.
say that they're negative people, but just that attachment was negative, right? From me to them, maybe even on my side.
Right.
And so yeah, so that's what I'm not thinking about like far ahead future. Like, yeah, I mean, I always thought like I want to get married and I want to have kids, right?
Hmm.
But it's not really looking like that. And so like this is something really important from the stuff that I've been like reading or listening to in the past couple of weeks, is that I don't need someone else to make me whole. What I really need is, if I'm ever to have that life, and if that is my if that is my path, that's what my creator wants me to do, then like I need to really, you hear this thing, self-love, all the time. And you're like,
Right.
oh, self-love. And I thought what that meant is, oh, I should get my nails done. I should get like my pedicure. I should take care of myself. That's not what self-love actually is. And I never knew that up until like the last month. And
Right.
what it means is, I love the person that I am. It doesn't matter if someone approves or disapproves of me. I enjoy my own company. I am okay being by myself. I am a kind person. Like, I'm not walking away from an interaction with the server or a
Hmm.
cashier feeling like I am, like I've just been rude or whatever. Like those kind of little things, like they affect you so much, and that's why service is so important, right? When you help
Right.
someone, you feel like you have a purpose in life, and that's been major. And actually, like really quick, I want to share this because I thought it
Sure.
was so profound. I don't even remember which piece of literature it was,
Hmm.
but so I'm going to tell you a story, right? So
Yes.
imagine someone comes to your house, and imagine like you have a kitchen, right? And
Hmm.
the kitchen, it just makes unlimited amounts of food, just whatever you want, anything you
Right.
could think of. And then
Hmm.
someone comes to your door and they're like, hey, I have this pizza. If you want this pizza, you can have it, but you have to do this, and that. And you have to be this way. And you look at this person, you're like, no thanks. I have a kitchen that makes like amazing pizza. As a matter of fact, if you want, you can come and have some of my pizza, right?
Hmm.
But imagine someone comes to your door and they're like, hey, I have this one size of pizza. You can have it, but you have to do this, and that. And you're starving. You have like no food in your kitchen at all. And you're
Hmm.
like, yeah, fuck yeah, give me this piece of pizza. I'll do
Yeah.
whatever you want. And
Right.
that's like the analogy for love, right? So like when you have love for yourself, for others, right? Like you have so much love. Like someone's gonna come and give you like pieces and bits, and you're like, no thanks. Like I know my worth. Like I don't need your love to fulfill me.
Mhm.
Like I got plenty of myself. But like when you don't have that, and you don't love yourself, and you carry that shame and guilt, and you think you're all these negative things, and then someone comes and they give you a little bit like of that comfort or love or attention, and you're like so starved, you're like, please, whatever you want, I'll do. I'll change who I am so like I can have this drug that you're giving me,
Mhm.
basically. And it's like, as alcoholic addict, we get to carry that, like we attach to those things, that
Mhm.
attention, that comfort. Like I enjoy it so much. Yes, please give it to me, because it's going to validate me as a person. And I've done that for so many years, and I'm able to see that now. If this is the kind of the relationship that I'm starting in, this is not the person my creator wants me to be with, right? And
Mhm.
I have this gut feeling that I always ignore, and I brush off to insecurities. I'm like, oh, I'm insecure. Oh, it's not their fault, it's mine. And that's what happened in this relationship. I had this gut feeling, which was a reaction to energy
Mhm.
shift, and I was just convinced like this is the insecurity, when it really wasn't. It was like I was on point, and it's happened time and time again. And we as humans in this world, like we a lot of the times we're like, we brush it to the side. We're like, no, this is not, this is me. And it's
Mhm.
not. It's like in recovery, I'm able to, as growing and evolving in recovery, I'm able to be more in tune with like the universe in general and like
Mhm.
the energy and the vibrations. Like it sounds hippie or whatever, and but like
No,
it's
no, it's
truly
not.
how it feels.
I totally get it. Um, we're always evolving, especially when we're in recovery and we're taking it serious. We're always evolving. We're always learning. It's so awesome for you to share your awareness. Like I love that. I love it's very powerful. Very
It's
powerful. Look at some
the
of the
timing is perfect, by the way. If you thank God, because you asked me to
if
speak
I would have got
earlier.
you on here like a month and a half ago, we would have had a different story.
Yeah, 100%. I'm not even kidding. 100%.
So here I'm going to put up some of these. I don't know if you could see it. Can you see Pandora says thank you so much,
Thank
Mariana.
you.
And then here's Mayar, love you, Mariana. Okay, Tina Irani, I know you know her. She's
Oh,
a Texas.
Tina.
Mariana is the queen.
Thank you.
And then Pandora says, "Preach truth, Mariana." Okay, so I want you to know something. God, I learned so much from just this conversation today because it's all the shit that goes through my own head already. Like, and I'm constantly processing, constantly like trying to make things make sense. And there was a time, like I told you, I'm 14 years sober. There was a time when I was like 5 or 6 years sober, so seeking so much validation, so much recognition. I would go to I remember like going to the movies one time alone and thinking I'm going to do this on my own. Like I can go to the movies alone, but I'd sit in there and not even pay attention to the movie because I'd see all the couples in there and think to myself, why am I not with somebody? Like, and I know I just gotten out of a relationship and I was so like just reaching for the life preserver. And I realized like over a period of time, like loneliness is not a bad thing. It's not even real. Like if you're really close to your creator, depending on how you roll, like you're never alone. You're really
Oh,
not alone. And you can have that relationship with yourself where you enjoy your own company. Go ahead. What were you going to say?
well, there's like loneliness and then there's being alone. And like loneliness is, I feel like, is the feeling. Like I still sometimes feel the loneliness, like honestly, when I was car camping, I thought it was perfect, but I wished I had a dog with me, like a medium-sized dog. I have a Chihuahua, but she's kind of like, yeah, she's not an adventure dog. I wish I had a medium-sized dog,
Right.
but like I'm okay with being alone. Like loneliness is the feeling that sometimes comes up, and like
Mhm.
it's okay. It's human. It's still like, I mean, 30. I'm 32 years old, and
Mhm.
I have 7.5+ years sober. But like all those years, even including the sobriety years, I've experienced that concept that I need without realizing what it really was. I experienced that concept like I deserve to be with someone who completes me. Not
Mhm.
necessarily like I need them to be complete, but more
Mhm.
like I need my other half. And
Right.
even that is like not how it works. I
Mhm.
read somewhere recently, it's like the other person is, like your partner or your soulmate or whatever. They're
Mhm.
not to complete you, they're to challenge you to grow, right? To help you grow. As human beings, help each other grow.
Mhm.
And it's not really like, and so, it's okay, like it's okay sometimes to get whatever, for me to like remember it's okay to get sad, or it's okay to um, feel the loneliness, but it's like important to keep. That's why I have a lot of trips. Like I literally go somewhere every weekend. It's like that kind of stuff. Being in nature, it like reminds me, right? That there's plenty more things to look forward to because I've been suicidal, right? I'm not on any antidepressants, and
Mhm.
I've not to knock them or anything, but just that. Yes, do I get depressed? Yes. Do I have anxiety? Major. But for me personally, literally all it will take is just being in nature, being like that allows me to be in the present, and it's like my meditation form,
Mhm.
and like it allows me to remember like I don't feel alone. There's like a bunch of animals out there, there's like all these like plants, you
Right.
know the clouds. Like I don't feel alone when I'm in those things.
I love it. I love it. Another thing that I was going to say is, we had Eskimos that brought us into recovery, which they were inspirational. They gave us hope, right? So, in talking about what we're talking about right now, like I never give up on love. It's funny, for a long time I was conditioned. Whenever somebody would say, "Pej, it's okay," like God is preparing the perfect woman for you, and I'd say to them, well, he's fucking taking his time, like his sweet ass time. Like, when the fuck is this going to actually happen? Because, and I realized, like, every relationship I have was not a bad relationship. There may have been toxic moments or toxic experiences, and I chose to be in those. I chose to paint red flags green and stay in those relationships. But they're all learning experiences, which makes me realize, like, what I don't want and what I do want. And so down the line, I still believe in love. And the reason I was saying about Eskimos, I have Eskimos that demonstrate what real love is, that are in relationships that are healthy, and they show me that it's real. Like, it can really happen. It can be. It's realistic. I have two friends that have been married 30 some odd years, and I'm like, do you guys ever even fight? Like, do you? I mean, what you have, like, the perfect relationship. She's not enmeshed in your life. You're not enmeshed in her life. But whenever I see you guys together, it's pure love, and that gives me the hope and the inspiration to know, like, it'll happen when it needs to happen, and it happens in God's time, in my Creator's time, not in my
It
time.
also yeah, for me, I feel like, so I felt that way for a long time too. And I think for me, I just got to the point recently, obviously, I got to the point where I'm like, it will happen when I am whole enough. Like, there
That's
will
right.
be like a lot of like whatever temptations or like, but it's
Sure.
like, I'm more aware now of like, not painting the red flags green, as they like to say.
Yeah.
Like, I'm more aware of these things. I literally, like, I'll know, like, probably within the first few minutes. And one of the pieces of literature I read says, like, you usually know within the first like 15 minutes
Hmm.
if this is the person or not. And then you tell yourself that this is okay, but and I'm just like way more aware of it now, to where I'm like,
Sure.
and
They
yeah,
say the first instinct.
yeah, exactly. But it's like, so I know, like, if this is ever in my path to like meet a soulmate, if that's like a thing or whatever,
Mhm.
if that is in my path, like, it will not happen until, how they say the master will appear when the student is ready, kind
Yes.
of like the same concept. Like, if that's going to ever appear, it's going to be when I am a whole person and I no longer need that to feel like I'm complete.
Yeah, I heard a saying one time in a 12-step meeting. You're ready for a relationship when you realize you don't have to be in a relationship.
Yeah, that's a good
Right.
one. Yeah, I
Yeah.
agree.
Wow, this was excellent. It's so good to hear from you, and I knew it was going to be good, because I remember when I'd heard you before, I was like, she's so well spoken. She, like, just the way you speak, it's enthralling. And so this is what I hope. I believe, and sometimes when I hear somebody speak as well as you, I believe that you have an amazing story that can inspire many. I would hope that one day you write a book. I think you would be a great writer. You're so well spoken. So I hope that happens.
Thank you.
I've thought it before. Um, and just to see your transformation and see who you are. Keep doing what you're doing, Marianna, because it's a lot to look up to, truly, and you can help a lot. I already know you help a lot.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Pej. I really appreciate the honor and privilege of having me on your podcast.
Mm.
I hope someone got something out of it. But yeah, it was a really awesome experience. Never done a podcast before, so I appreciate you. Thank you.
Awesome, awesome. Have a good rest of your
Thank
day.
you.
Enjoy the rest of your weekend, and keep being an adventurer.
Okay.
Much love.
Deal. Promise I'll do that. Bye.
Awesome. Bye.